Hey guys, welcome. I thought I would do a little video on why I quit teaching. I realized I've never actually addressed that, and I just thought it would be one, interesting for any of you who are maybe looking to leave the teaching profession and to do something different, or if you have an interest in SLP and you're wondering kind of how I got here. I just thought I would talk about some of the reasons why I left. So I have my notebook here, so I might be like looking down periodically just to refresh my memory on some of the things I wanted to talk about. The lack of mobility within the field. This is something I really struggled with as I was getting along in my career. I taught for 3 years, and I found that by the third year I was ready for something different. However, if you currently are in the teaching field, you kind of know that, like, not to say it this way, but it's kind of a dead-end job unless you want to work in administration, or you want to be a learning coach, or work for the district. None of which I wanted to do, because also if you don't work in education, or you do, then you may or may not know that, like, those tend to be jobs that are very frowned upon by other people in your district, or like teachers themselves. A lot of teachers really complain about, like, the learning specialists and coaches and admin not understanding what it's like to be in the actual classroom. And personally, I just didn't want to participate in that. That was just not the end goal for me. I just never wanted to feel like I was on the other side of what was happening in the classroom. Another thing, I feel like that just made me feel very stuck. And personally, I'm somebody who has moved around a lot, has tried a lot of different things, so feeling stuck is not something that I enjoy, and I just knew that I needed to find something else that I was passionate about and to move along in my journey and in my career path. And this also leads me into not being able to use my degree for other things. Unfortunately, if you went the traditional route to be a teacher, you likely have a degree in elementary education, secondary education, and that's not good for a lot of other things. You can't do a lot of other things with that unless maybe you want to pivot into, like, educational technology, or, like I said, coaching, admin. Those are really the only positions that I feel like it's really easy to transfer your degree and to use it to get another position. And again, that was just really something that frustrated me, because I felt like I spent 4 years of my life getting this degree. I'm supposed to be in this job forever, and now here I am, and I don't want to do this job anymore. I loved it during the time, but I'm ready for something different, and it just was very frustrating to me personally. So that's reason number one, just lack of mobility and feeling stuck in where I was as a young 20-something. Number two, I think this is not a surprise to anyone. Pay. Teacher pay can be absolutely abysmal depending on where you live. For instance, sorry if you can hear my dog, like, rolling around on the floor. My first position was in Denver, Colorado, and this is before they changed their salary schedule. So at one point, I was making $43,000 a year. If you have ever lived in Denver, Colorado, or a high-cost living area, that is unlivable. That does not pay rent unless you want to live in, like, the crappiest, most unsafe area that there is. And mind you, where my school was not already was not the best area. So that was like, and I'm gonna be extremely transparent. I did have help during that first year that I was teaching, because there was no way that I was going to be able to afford to live somewhere safe and be able to pay all my bills on that. Or thank God I didn't have student loans, but again, like, I had to pay rent, and I think at the time rent there for a 1-bedroom was going for around like $1,600. So imagine trying to make $3,000 a month. So that's about what I was making. Make that stretch for rent and all your bills, your groceries, student loans if you have them, your car payment if you have one. So that was just, it was very, very eye-opening for me, because I know I feel like as somebody who's in college, right? If you worked during college, then you know you probably don't make a lot of money during that time. And so to go from not making a lot of money to still making not a lot of money after all that time and effort that I put in, I just felt like, what am I doing? I could be doing something else and possibly making double the income, but here I am doing all this work and just struggling. And I know some of you, if you don't work in education, you might be like, oh, well, you get summers off, you get spring break, you get Christmas breaks. I'll get into that later. However, I still think teachers should make a fair wage for the amount of work and overtime you put in, because you put in a lot of overtime. And I say that as someone who lived it. You're constantly underappreciated for that overtime and no one cares. So do with that information what you will. Like I said, it's highly dependent on where you live. Unfortunately, where I live, teachers were not fairly compensated. When I moved back to New Mexico, it was a little bit better. I was making about $55,000 a year, and it's gone up since then. So I think states are getting better about it. If you live in a blue state, if you live in a red state, girl, good luck to you. But if you live in a blue state, I think we're slowly seeing those increases just because cost of living has gotten insane. And also on that note, I felt like with cost of living getting higher and higher every single year that I taught, I also was struggling to save any additional income. 1, 2, if there was an emergency, I was freaking out. For instance, my first dog, Oakley, he ate something that he wasn't supposed to, got super, super sick, and ended up having to go to the emergency vet, and that was $2,000. Mind you, I only make $3,000 a month. That's my entire paycheck. And I still had to pay rent. I still had to pay my utilities, car, everything else on top of that. So when any kind of thing like that happens, you're almost in a panic mode because you're like, well, crap, do I have enough money in savings? Am I gonna have to dig into my savings? And so that was something that I just felt very panicked about, and I didn't want to continue on that path for the rest of my life. God forbid, I don't know, if your spouse or your kids or anyone like that gets sick or you have to go to the hospital, that's a very real possibility and very scary if you don't feel like you have enough of a safety net, which at that time I felt like I didn't. So that was a really big motivator for me to be like, okay, I need to do something else because this is just not going to cut it for the next 40, 50 years of my life, just constantly feeling like I'm on a hamster wheel trying to make ends meet. Something they also don't really tell you when you're going to school to be a teacher, there is a pay ceiling. There is a max amount you are going to make, and that knowledge is public. If you are currently in school to be a teacher or in education, I highly, highly advise you to look at the pay scale where you live. Like I said, if you're in a blue state, you might be a little bit better off with starting pay. However, that pay eventually caps. Here in Oregon, I think it caps off around 100, but that's after 20 years of you working there. And if you leave districts or you take a break, that can mess up your pay too. So that was something else that I was constantly thinking about, because really in any other job, I feel like you can continue to grow and see wages, or you can job hop and make sure you get that pay raise. You can't do that in education. It's like, oh, you taught 5 years, here's what you're getting. It's very specific to the state, but it can have very, very real consequences for your future if you are feeling like this is not enough money. It's not all about pay though. And something else I wanted to talk about was the change in education. If you live in the US, right now we are going through a time period of anti-intellectualism. It's very controversial. However, that really, really affects public school. I personally felt like we're seeing more and more of that. Something that's to consider if you are working in schools is, are you going to work in a Title I school, or are you going to work in a non-Title I? Title I, I feel like while you get a lot of resources, you're dealing with some other things, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you're not working in a Title I school, you don't get a lot of those federal resources, and that can really, really affect the way that you teach and run your classroom. For example, when I was in Title I, we had all of our school supplies paid for, donated, tons of school supplies. I never had to go out and buy my own school supplies. versus when I moved and I was no longer teaching Title I was buying a crap ton of school supplies because they were not given to us. I was buying a crap ton of my own resources. I was spending money on resources just because we were not getting that federal support that Title I schools do, which it goes back into pay. Like, if you're constantly buying resources for your classroom, you're spending your own money. That's money that's no longer going to your household, it's going to your classroom. And that gets to be like a really gray area just because it's like, okay, well, these kids, I'm giving everything to these kids, including my money. And that's something that, unfortunately, like, I think education can prey on, is that very empathetic type of person who likes to provide for others. So it's hard not to do those things. It's easy if you're not in education to say, well, just don't spend your money. It's a lot harder when there's a kid who's not eating breakfast at home or has no access to resources, and you do have the access to those things and you can help provide some of that support. So yeah, just things to think about is like Title I versus non-Title I, federal resources. And we see those things getting smaller and smaller, and I think it's making it harder and harder for teachers who are currently working right now. Post-COVID, let's talk about post-COVID, guys. Hoo-wee! Behavior is rough post-COVID, and I say that as somebody who's currently teaching right now. Like, teaching preschool right now is hard. And I think during COVID, we saw a lot of different things that were happening, right? Yeah, behavior is a huge one. Lack of communication with peers and other adults, and so you're just seeing a lot of social behaviors that are not typical, I would say. It just makes it very, very hard on a day-to-day basis, and I feel like the longer that I've continued to work in education, the worse that it's getting. And on that same note too, right, I feel like parents are also extremely stretched thin. Like, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for parents right now, because I think with the way that costs are constantly rising, more parents are working second or third jobs and they're spending less time at home with their kids. And that also makes a huge impact on day-to-day learning and on development. And I feel like teachers are really taking the brunt of that because we are expected to fill in these really crucial gaps for reading, for math, and it's impossible. It is impossible to, for example, I taught second grade, right? I had kids that were coming in at a preschool level and then expected to be on second grade level by the end of the school year. You can't do that. It's just not possible with the amount of students you have and just one teacher. So I feel like it was like a never-ending battle of like trying to fill in gaps, trying to make up for lack of time spent with parents. And at the end of the day, you end up almost feeling like a parent and a teacher. And that's just, it's very, very draining. And like I said, I have a lot of empathy for parents right now. I think times are really hard for everybody. So yeah, that's how I felt about that. Boredom and unhappiness. Now, I loved my job in the beginning. This is one of those jobs where you take it home whether you mean to or not emotionally. I think you can just be so overstimulated and exhausted by the end of the day. Like, I know for me, every day that I get home, even now, after working with kids, I have to sit in my car for like 20 to 30 minutes and just not talk to anyone. I just need to turn my brain off and decompress and just be present with myself, because like I said, you're taking on all these personalities and emotions all day long, and it gets to be really, really exhausting and hard. And I got to the point where I was just like I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted, and it's not because I'm doing something physical, but this mental, like, decision-making process that you do every day. Because mind you, teachers are making as many decisions as neurosurgeons on a daily basis. I want you to think about that. That is a crap ton of pressure and decision-making and fatigue all day long. And I just, personally for me, I knew that I could not live the rest of my life like that, just feeling like overwhelmed and overstimulated all the time. That's just not the journey for me. Yeah, that's how I felt about that. Also, too tired to enjoy time off. I said I would come back to this. It makes me rage when people say to teachers, but you get summers off, you get winter break. Girl, I earned that. I am tired. I would like to put out there that no teacher is going out and having like the best time of their lives during breaks. I think most of us end up just rotting on the couch, watching movies, and just trying to recover. Because like I said, when you're constantly exhausted, overstimulated, and just like overwhelmed, you don't want to go do things during your breaks. Also, we put in so much overtime that it's like that time, it makes up for the breaks, okay? It really does. Personally for me, I know every time I was on summer break, I literally would do nothing for like the first 3 weeks. I would just try to be a person again first, and then I'd worry about what I was doing after that. Also, sorry, I feel like the lighting's getting weird. It actually got sunny out instead of cloudy, and now it's like, I feel like the light is weird, but whatever. So yeah, even though you get summer breaks off, it doesn't really feel like you do. And I also don't think that's a good reason for us to still not get paid like a regular profession. Like, anyway, please. Lack of respect goes along with like that unhappiness. Whew, child, if I had $1 for every time I said I was a teacher and I got the like look, I'd be wealthy. I would be wealthy. The amount of like disrespect that teachers get is freaking wild. I feel like we are one of the most disrespected careers sometimes. Just the way that people talk about us, act toward us, the way discourses online, on TikTok, on Instagram, some of the stuff I see is absolutely crazy. Because I would love, and I think every parent, I think every person should have to go and sit in a classroom full of 30 kids for a day and try to manage that situation and also teach them to be a good person and to learn. I think everyone should have to do that. Yeah, like I said, some of the things that people have said or like the interactions I've had when I tell people I'm a teacher is crazy. And I just cannot, like I can't. I noticed this more when I lived in Denver, actually. I would like, when I met people for the first time, I would tell them I was a teacher and they would kind of be like brush me off, like, oh, you're not smart enough to do something else. You're not making enough money. Like those kind of things immediately would come up in conversation, and to me it's just disgusting. I think teachers are some of the smartest individuals I've ever met, some of the most caring people I've ever met, and I just absolutely cannot stand the disrespect that teachers get. Point blank, period. I was always really interested in healthcare. I've loved healthcare since I was a child. I grew up on Grey's Anatomy, like wanted to be a doctor, blah, blah, blah. And instead I chose teaching. It's a story for a different time. But yeah, I always knew that I wanted to work in healthcare. And I got to the point in life where I just felt like, why not? Why not do the thing? So I decided to take all my prereqs in speech pathology, and I applied to grad schools, and I got in, thank God. I got into almost every school I applied to besides 2. And yeah, it's where I was meant to be, I feel like. And I also knew a lot of SLPs when I was working in schools. Obviously, we had like a very close working relationship with them, which I'm so grateful for. But yeah, I just feel like I wanted to do other things, and I was not gonna let going back to school hold me back. We won't talk about my student loans, that's another story. But I'm very grateful to be where I am, and I feel like it aligns with where I'm at in my life right now. And I also think that education, healthcare, SLP, it's the perfect combination. I feel like you can choose whether you want to work in ed more so, like if you want to work in a school, or if you want to work in more in the healthcare side and like medical SLP roles. So it just made the most sense for me, and I knew that I really wanted to continue working with kids. That was never something I questioned. I love working with kids. Focus, hello? And I hate working with adults. So it just was, like I said, where I think I was meant to be in this stage of my life, and I'm very grateful to be here. But I think that's all. I've been talking and yapping for 20 something minutes. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like me to talk about how I got into SLP grad school. But I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you so much, bye.